Welcome back to Andersen Acres. This is Farm Fights, our monthly podcast where we talk about the most controversial topics in hobby farming, put them under the microscope, and see what really holds up. I'm Leigh-Ann, and around here the animals are in charge, and I'm just here for the ride. Today's fight is one that flares up every fall, right about the time the first cold winds start blowing. It's a debate that can split a chicken keeping group in two faster than you can say coop clean out. That's right, today we're talking about deep litter. Should you use it? Should you avoid it? And why on earth does everyone have such strong opinions about a pile of poop and pine shavings? Before we start, I'll say this right off the bat. There is no single right answer here. Deep litter works beautifully for some people, and for others, like us, it's a total frozen disaster. So rather than arguing for one side, we're going to really dig into how it works, why it works for some folks, and why it absolutely does not work for others. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is deep litter? The short version is that instead of cleaning your coop regularly, you let bedding and manure build up over time in layers on the floor of your coop. You add fresh shavings or straw on top, mix it around every now and then, and let nature do some of the work for you. The idea is that the manure provides nitrogen, the bedding provides carbon, and together they start to compost right there in the coop. In theory, this keeps things warmer and less smelly and easier to manage through the winter. In reality, it depends a lot on your setup, your climate, and how much time you're willing to put into managing it. Deep litter isn't set it and forget it, despite what anyone might tell you. It's more like set it, stir it, sniff it, and hope it doesn't turn into an ammonia swamp. Let's talk about why people swear by it first, because when it works, it can be pretty great. One big advantage is the labor. Instead of hauling out all your bedding every week, you just keep adding fresh layers. Done well, it can save you a lot of work, especially during the colder months, when cleaning out a coop sounds about as much fun as sticking your hands in a snowbank. Another reason people love it is the smell control. When deep litter is balanced properly, meaning there's enough carbon material to soak up the nitrogen from the manure, it doesn't smell bad. It actually smells earthy, kind of like a wet forest floor. That's a sign that good microbes are breaking things down. Plus, those microbes can generate a little bit of heat as they work, which helps keep the coop temperature a few degrees warmer than that cold outside air. There's also the added bonus that by spring, you've got partially composted bedding that's fantastic for the garden. So you get free fertilizer, less waste, and a little natural warmth in the coop. That's a lot of benefits in one system, if it works for you. Now let's talk about when it doesn't work, because that's where I come down. It didn't work. Here at Andersen Acres, we don't use deep litter. And the reason is simple. Winter. Our winters are brutal, okay? I'm not kidding. I'm talking minus 40 for weeks on end. Anything damp turns into a solid block of ice. And deep litter is wet. Okay, it's damp. It shouldn't be sopping, but there's a dampness to it. And when our winters hit, your nice fluffy composting litter isn't composting anymore. It's just frozen. Okay? You can't stir it. You can't manage it. And when spring finally rolls around, it melts into something that can only be described as barnyard soup. And it smells. I've tried it. I've lived it. It's not worth it. Once it freezes, it locks all that moisture and manure into itself until everything starts to thaw. Okay? And then you're left with a stinking soggy mess right when you hit the busiest time of year, spring chores. Okay? And because the ammonia builds up over the winter, the first warm day can hit you like a wall. I promise there's nothing quite like the smell of months of frozen chicken poop thawing all at once. It's delightful? No, it's not. But again, that's our climate. For people who don't deal with long, deep freezes, deep litter can actually be an absolute dream. If your winters are cool but not Arctic, then your coop, as long as it's dry and well ventilated, well, you can probably make deep litter work in your coop. The key words here are dry, ventilated, and balanced. If your coop leaks or if your ventilation isn't great, deep litter can very quickly turn from nature's compost system into a microbial horror show. The science behind it is actually pretty fascinating. Chicken manure is really high in nitrogen. Bedding materials like your pine shavings and your straw or even your hemp are really high in carbon. When those two mix in the right ratio with oxygen and moisture, the microbes that live in the litter break down everything, releasing heat and reducing the odors. The problem is that those microbes are living organisms. If the litter gets too wet, they suffocate and die off. If it gets too dry, they go dormant. And if it freezes, everything stops working altogether. So to keep it functioning, you have to be a little bit of a manager. You have to add bedding regularly to absorb moisture. You have to stir it now and then to get the oxygen down into all the layers. And you have to pay attention to the smell. If it smells earthy, it's healthy. If it smells like ammonia, you've got a little bit of a problem. Ammonia, by the way, is no joke. It's not just an unpleasant smell. It's a respiratory irritant. Chickens are particularly sensitive to this particular compound because they live so close to the ground and their little lungs are delicate. Even low levels of ammonia can cause eye irritation, sneezing, and damage to the respiratory system. If you walk into your coop and your eyes are stinging, that's a sign you got to fix something. Add carbon, stir it up, and improve your airflow immediately. The other big problem with deep litter, especially for people in humid areas, is called matting. Long straw or hay tends to tangle together to form a dense mat on top. That mat traps moisture underneath, and then you end up with pockets of anaerobic decay. And that's just a fancy way of saying it's rotting, not composting. You'll know what's happening because you'll smell it. It smells like swamp gas instead of rich forest soil. That's why a lot of people recommend using chopped straw or larger pine shavings instead. You want structure and airflow through the bedding, not a tangled mass of webbing. So, when does deep litter shine? Usually in climates where winter's temperature, the temperatures get a little below freezing, but they don't get Arctic-like. And it usually doesn't stay that cold for long, right? You're not talking 3 months of 40 below. You're talking about 2 or 3 weeks of cold. Then your deep litter will probably survive. It's also ideal for coops that stay dry and have great ventilation. And you have to have really good maintenance. So if you're a diligent keeper and you're willing to turn it and maintain it and go in there and give a good sniff to make sure it's working. If you can stir it, if it never freezes and it smells good, you've got a system that's working exactly as intended. Go ahead and use it. If you decide to try deep litter, start with a dry base. 4 to 6 inches of clean, absorbent bedding. Pine shavings are usually the ideal choice because they break down kind of slowly and they aerate well. Every week, add a little bit more, especially under the roosts where droppings collect. Stir or rake the top layer every few days, at least once a week, and add more bedding when everything starts to look damp or smell off. Not rotting. You want to get to it before it smells like it's rotting. But when it doesn't smell earthy anymore, okay? As soon as it starts to smell weird, more bedding, okay? You want to keep the top fluffy, not matted. And above all, make sure your coop has strong ventilation at the very top so moisture can escape without chilling your birds. Because deep litter does introduce added moisture, okay? That's just the way it is. Deep litter needs at least a little moisture in order to exist. So you are adding moisture when you're using the deep litter method. Now, if you're like us and deep litter isn't realistic in your climate, don't worry. There are great alternatives. We do what we call a shallow litter system. A few inches of bedding, whether you use paper or dry shavings, it doesn't matter. And then we scrape off where they poop, like the poop shelves, every day or two, okay? Most of the manure never even hits the floor because they're up on the shelves, except for the ducks. They don't go up on the shelves. But most of it doesn't hit the floor. which keeps ammonia down and bedding drier, and we are removing droppings regularly. When the shavings look tired or compacted, when your bedding's all, we use a lot of paper bedding, and when it's flattened, well, then it's time to replace it completely. It does take a bit more effort, but it prevents the frozen brick problem and keeps the coop fresh all winter. We also use what I jokingly call deep litter for the run. Outside the coop where the birds scratch around all day, we throw down leaves and straw and wood chips. Out there, it's fine if it freezes or gets wet because the chickens are constantly mixing it up for us. By spring, we've got a rich, crumbly material to move to the compost pile. Inside the coop, we have to keep it dry and manageable. That's just the way it is. Now, there are a lot of myths about deep litter, so let's clear up a few of those. First, deep litter doesn't really heat your coop. It can make a difference by a couple of degrees, maybe, but it's not a substitute for good insulation or proper roost placement. You still need to make sure your birds are protected from the cold. If you're counting on it to keep your birds warm through a prairie winter, you're going to be disappointed. It won't work. Second, deep litter isn't lazy. People sometimes treat it as the no maintenance option, but that's a recipe for disaster. Done right, it takes attention just like any other system. There's just less hauling. Done wrong, it's worse than no cleaning at all. And third, deep litter doesn't replace ventilation. That's the number one mistake new chicken keepers make. They close up their coops to keep the heat in and then wonder why their birds are coughing. Moisture and ammonia rise, and without airflow, that buildup is going to make your birds sick. So if you take nothing else away from this episode, remember this. Ventilation beats insulation every single time. So where does that leave us? Well, if you live somewhere with mild to moderately cold winters, if your coop stays dry and you're willing to manage it, deep litter can be a truly fantastic option. If you live somewhere that turns into an Arctic wasteland for 3 months of the year, like us, then no, it might not work for you. In those conditions, it's better just to continue on as you normally do because the deep litter will just freeze solid, stop working, and create more problems than it solves. So just continue to clean your coop like you do in the summer. At Andersen Acres, we stick with shallow litter and poop boards, and our coops stay clean, dry, and manageable. But if deep litter works for you, I'm glad. That's great. Keep doing what works. Farming isn't one size fits all, and neither is chicken keeping. The important thing is that your birds are healthy, your coop is safe, and you can breathe when you walk inside. That's about it for me here today at Andersen Acres. I'd love to hear what you think about deep litter. Have you used it? Do you swear by it? Or did it turn into an icy nightmare like it did for us? Drop a comment and share your experience. It helps everyone figure out what really works in their different climates. Thanks for tuning in. Take care of those chickens, and we'll see you tomorrow.